The clink of crystal and the warm hum of celebration filled the air at my wedding reception. I stood near the ivy-covered trellis, a glass of champagne in hand, allowing myself a moment of quiet triumph. That's when I heard her voice, my mother's, carrying from just behind the floral arrangement. She was speaking to one of my new in-laws. "Oh, we didn't really help with this. Valerie's wedding isn't exactly our priority. Her sister's will be the real celebration." My name is Valerie. I'm 29, and for most of my life, I've been a ghost in my own family. While my younger sister Brittany's journey to med school was narrated like an epic saga, my career as a freelance graphic designer was dismissed with a wave of my mother's hand. Not a real job, she'd say, as if my client contracts and late-night hustle were figments of my imagination. When I got engaged to James, a warm and steady accountant who truly saw me, my parents met the news with the enthusiasm of someone receiving a utility bill. Their indifference wasn't just hurtful, it was a constant, quiet erasure. But what they never understood was that I had been building something in the silence they gave me, something solid, successful, and entirely my own. The dismissal began the moment I shared my news, 6 months prior. Sitting at their kitchen table, I'd said, "James proposed, we're getting married." My mother didn't look up from her coffee. "That's nice, dear. Will it be small? We're saving for Brittany's medical school graduation trip." My father's newspaper didn't so much as rustle. When I clarified we wanted a real wedding for 80 guests, my mother laughed. "On a freelancer's income? Good luck. Maybe just do a backyard barbecue." The slights grew more brazen. A month later, my mother announced she'd be flying across the country to support Brittany during her residency interviews. "When?" I asked, already knowing. "Next spring, April." "Mom, that's my wedding weekend." She blinked as if I'd reminded her of a dental appointment. "Oh, is it? Well, Brittany's future is important. We'll try to make it back in time." My father, without looking up, delivered the final blow. "Honestly, Valerie, you're not exactly throwing a Plaza Hotel event. We won't miss much." I paid for my own save-the-dates, which they never acknowledged receiving. I overheard my mother telling my aunt on speakerphone, "We're not really involved. It's small, nothing fancy. We'll show up, I guess." At the grocery store, a family friend congratulated me, only for my mother to cut in. "Oh yes, Valerie's doing a little ceremony, nothing like what we'll do for Brittany someday." I stood there, holding a loaf of bread, feeling myself vanish. The ultimate request came 1 month before the wedding. "Can you postpone?" my mother asked, her voice tight. "Brittany's graduation is the same season. We can't handle 2 events emotionally." When I said everything was booked, she snapped, "You never think of family, do you?" and hung up. That night, James found me crying on our couch. "Let them underestimate you," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "Let's make this wedding beautiful for us." And we did. What my parents didn't know, because they never asked, was that their narrative of my life was a fiction. 2 years earlier, I'd taken a risk. A promising startup couldn't afford my full fee, so I'd accepted partial payment in equity. That gamble had paid off to the tune of $120,000, combined with James' prudent financial planning and a $30,000 inheritance from my grandmother that my parents had dismissed as not much. We had substantial resources. We weren't extravagant, but we were secure, and we'd earmarked a generous sum for a wedding that reflected our joy. So I booked an elegant vineyard nestled in rolling hills. I hired a sought-after photographer, a florist known for breathtaking arrangements, a gourmet caterer, and a live band. Every detail was a deliberate act of creation, not a cry for their approval. My parents RSVP'd a tentative maybe, then confirmed 2 weeks out they'd only attend the ceremony. "We have dinner plans. We'll skip the reception." I simply replied, "Fine." The day of the wedding dawned clear and bright. From behind a tent, I watched my parents arrive. My father scanned the vineyard, the draped linens, the string lights beginning to glow in the late afternoon sun. "This place is actually nice," he muttered. "How'd she afford this?" My mother shrugged. "Maybe James's family paid, or she's in debt. She's always been irresponsible." They took seats in the back row for the ceremony, looking detached while Brittany scrolled on her phone. but as the reception began, their detached curiosity curdled into confusion. They watched guests marvel at the artisan cheese display, the open bar serving premium liquors, the band striking up a perfect first dance song. My mother's eyes darted around, calculating. They approached me near the sweetheart table. "Valerie, this is lovely," my mother began, her tone straining for casual. "Who helped you plan all this?" "I did," I said, smiling. My father's voice was a low growl. "Who paid for it?" A small circle of nearby guests fell quiet. My mother, voice rising with performative concern, pressed on. "Seriously, Valerie, did you go into debt? This must have cost $50,000. 60, I corrected calmly, and we paid for every dollar of it ourselves. My father sputtered. "There's no way you—" I didn't let him finish. I pulled my phone from my clutch, opened my business banking app, and turned the screen towards them. The balance was clear and undeniable. My hobby, emphasis sharp, became a six-figure career. I took an equity deal 2 years ago. I've been financially independent for 18 months. The silence was profound. My father stared, jaw slack. Brittany, who had drifted over, looked shocked. James stepped to my side, his arm a steady presence behind me. "She also invested her grandmother's inheritance wisely," he added, his accountant's precision lethal in its clarity. "She grew it. She's been successful for years. You just never asked." My mother flushed scarlet, flustered. "Well, we didn't know you were doing so well. You never told us." "You never asked," I repeated, my voice even. "Not once." My aunt, who had been lingering nearby, spoke up, her voice laced with irony. "You told me this wedding was nothing fancy." My mother had no reply. I looked at my parents, seeing not the intimidating figures of my childhood, but two people who had chosen a narrow story and were now lost outside of it. "You didn't ignore my wedding because it was small," I said, the truth finally liberated. "You ignored me because you've always ignored me." My mother reached out, a habitual gesture meant to reclaim control through a hug. I took a subtle step back, just out of reach. "I don't need your approval anymore. I needed it when I was young, but I built a life without it." My father, his voice uncharacteristically small, tried, "We're proud of you." I met his gaze. "You're impressed by the money. That's not the same thing." At that moment, the wedding planner glided over, beaming. "Valerie, I just wanted to say again, you've been the most organized, financially prepared bride I've ever worked with. A true pleasure." She floated away, leaving my parents standing in the wreckage of their assumptions. The rest of the evening was a blur of joy, but it was a joy that explicitly excluded them. They became spectators, hovering at the edges of the dance floor, their attempts at conversation met with my polite, distant smiles. When my mother tried once more, touching my arm during a slow song, I simply said, "Not tonight. Tonight is for people who believed in me." In the weeks that followed, a long, rambling email arrived from them, a mix of apology, justification, and a plea to rebuild. I didn't reply immediately. James and I used our remaining savings as a down payment on a charming house with a garden, our sanctuary. The silence from them no longer felt like punishment, it felt like peace. Interestingly, the first to bridge the gap was Brittany. She called me, her voice hesitant. "Valerie, I've been jealous of you. You're independent. You built something real. I'm just doing what they wanted." It was the first honest conversation we'd ever had. I set a boundary, but with the thread of hope. "I'll be in your life, Brittany, but I won't be invisible anymore." "I understand," she said. I later learned my parents started therapy. Whether it changes our relationship remains to be seen, but the liberation I found wasn't in their potential change, it was in my own unwavering certainty. That wedding was the best day of my life, not because I finally proved them wrong, but because I finally, irrevocably proved myself right. I was always worth the investment. I just had to become my own most faithful investor.